My favorite thing in gaming probably ever is when a game does so well sales-wise that a studio puts the time and money into making a weird but usually really fun spin-off. And the reason I love these weird spin-off games so much, other than the fact that they're usually a really great time, is that it gives developers a chance to kind of experiment with these characters and worlds that they've created. And I just really love that. They're almost refreshing to play in a way, if that makes sense. Also, if you want to help out, liking and subscribing would be much appreciated. One of my personal favorite spin-offs that comes to mind is the My Sims series. And if you haven't guessed by now, it's based on The Sims. But contrary to the mainline Sims games, there's a more linear story where you have to redevelop this town that kinda turned to shit when someone else that had the same special power as you moved away. This power is using these things called essences, and it's basically a paint tool, but yeah. I don't know, the story's kinda lackluster and basic, but holy shit do I love the gameplay and pretty much everything else about this game. If you want an extremely basic bare bones explanation of the game, it's Animal Crossing but The Sims. You go around doing requests for people and making the town look all nice. And there's a lot of aspects to it that I actually do prefer over Animal Crossing. A lot of the characters in My Sims are more interesting to me for some reason, because Animal Crossing, if you don't know, has these sort of preset personalities for every villager. Also in Animal Crossing, I don't always like the mechanic of having to wait real time for stuff, so it's nice to not have to do that in a town sim. Fundamentally, these games are super similar, and they're both made by two of the most infamously greedy companies in gaming. But anyway, there are 6 different My Sims games that are all extremely different from each other. So you have My Sims and My Sims Kingdom, which are town sims basically, and then you also have a party game, a kart racing game, a game about secret agents, and a war game. They definitely lost the plot near the end, which is why the last new My Sims game came out in 2010. What almost prompted me to make this video though is the fact that they dropped a port or a remaster or whatever on the Switch recently, so that's really exciting for me. Ryu ga Gotoku Online, or Yakuza Online, is a free-to-play card game based on the Yakuza / Like a Dragon series. Launched back in 2018, RGG Online follows Ichiban as the main protagonist, but apparently Kiryu comes back later on in a mission, which is actually pretty cool. Also, there's a shit ton of story content by the looks of it, with 22 different chapters to play. But apparently this game is really obscure, at least in North America, because it's hard to find a whole lot of information on it. I also don't think there's an official English translation for the game either, because it's a Japan exclusive. To make things worse or better depending on what you're into, this game is a turn-based card game, but the primary focus of it is to build and upgrade a team because the combat is like automatic. It's really weird. And the fact that it's a gacha game means that there's a really big luck element, but I have heard that it's pretty generous. With all that though, there is a PvP mode as well, which is really interesting. As I've said before, I really love Yakuza, so this was really intriguing to even find out about the existence of this game. But I will say that I was a little bit disappointed that it doesn't play out like a Yakuza game. I was hoping that it would sort of be like how GTA Online is to GTA 5, where it's kind of just an MMO set in the same world as the mainline games. Being a mobile game though, you can expect a shit ton of monetization, mostly through the random draw element I was talking about earlier. It's basically gambling, there's no hiding it, but at least my money can go towards getting a picture of Kiryu with gold and shit on it. I still did enjoy my pretty short time with this game regardless of it being objectively not great and an obvious cash grab, but that's honestly to be expected with a game like this. If you want to play it for yourself, there's all sorts of workarounds involving APK files and setting your account to make it seem like you're in Japan. Personally, I'm just using this emulator thing so I can play on PC without messing with my account, but you can do whatever. I'm aware of the million other Yakuza spin-offs, but I felt the need to talk about this one for some reason because it's not really widely known, I don't think. Another game that should be talked about is Dragon Quest Builders, Builders 2 to be specific. The Dragon Quest series, not unlike Yakuza, has a billion different spin-offs, like an insane amount. But Dragon Quest Builders is by far the most interesting one to me. Once in a while, I'll go over to GameStop or something with my friends and grab a couple of used PS4 games out of the bargain bin, and on one of these outings I came across Dragon Quest Builders 2. And as soon as I started playing it, it clicked with me. In a way, it almost felt nostalgic even though I had never played it before, because it was really reminiscent of something that could be on the 3DS or something. It just gives off that feeling. And yeah, it definitely is what you could expect from a spin-off sandbox game, but compared to other games in this genre, it's a fucking masterpiece. The story is almost the exact same as every other sandbox kind of game, but with some little Dragon Quest JRPG spins on it. It's unique enough I guess, but the lore runs really deep apparently if you want to check that out. It's really hard to put into words why exactly I enjoy this game so much because I really have no clue why, but it's usually something I'll play if I want a more relaxing time. I really don't like this description, but I feel like it could definitely be seen as one of those cozy games. You have your farming, your building, and being creative and all that, your customization, and you can really just do everything at your own pace. And I love when games let you do that. But yeah, if you want to try out this game for yourself, it's definitely not worth the $65 on Steam. So look for a used copy like I did or wait for a big ass sale. I want to round off the video here with an integral part of my childhood. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. What a weird ass game, but in the best way possible. Unlike the traditional Pokemon game formula, you play as the Pokemon themselves, and as the name implies, the gameplay in the series revolves around going through mysterious dungeons. Who could have guessed that? Also, the Pokemon Rumble series deserves a big honorable mention, but I just thought Mystery Dungeon was more worth talking about in this case. But anyways, the gameplay in Mystery Dungeon games are more like dungeon crawling RPGs than Pokemon, but you still build your team of Pokemon as usual. There's not much to it, and the gameplay loop gets boring eventually, but it's fun and charming. My personal favorite entry in the series is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Gates to Infinity for the 3DS. For Pokemon standards, Mystery Dungeon usually feels surprisingly intense, but Gates to Infinity tones that back quite a bit. And there's also this town building mechanic which is kinda just there. Overall an enjoyable experience, and I felt like it needed to be talked about if we're talking about weird spin-off games. They also remade it for the Switch, which really surprised me because I thought Mystery Dungeon was completely dead and forgotten about. So if you couldn't guess by now, weird and kind of obscure spin-off games have a special place in my heart. While I don't agree with the pricing of a lot of them, I still feel like they're generally underappreciated and not talked about enough. You'll also notice a big theme of the stories kind of being boring and even bad sometimes, but the gameplay usually makes up for it and then some. They're just stupid and fun most of the time, and I'm still praying for a completely new My Sims game and not just a remaster. But that's gonna do it for today. Liking and subscribing would be much appreciated. Goodbye.